All right, disruption and recovery. Disrupted, full retreat, and good order. In general, there are two types of disruption, disrupted and full retreat. When a unit or stack is in this state, place the appropriate marker on it. Units that are not disrupted or in full retreat are considered in good order, even if engaged, scattered, out of supply, or beneath a replacement marker. How units become disrupted. Any unit that retreats from a result other than a defender shattered or defender mandatory retreat becomes disrupted. If already disrupted, it goes into full retreat. If a unit marked engaged moves 2 hexes, so a unit becomes disrupted if it's engaged and it moves 2 hexes, and a unit becomes disrupted if it's an artillery unit that moves 2 hexes using tactical movement. Okay? How units become in full retreat. Any unit that suffers a defender shattered or defender mandatory retreat result. Any disrupted unit that suffers another disrupted result. During a friendly movement phase, a player may replace any number of disrupted markers on his units with full retreat markers in order to move those units their full movement allowance. Okay. Effects of, so any of it. Okay. Effects of disruption. A disrupted unit suffers the following effects. Bridges. It may not attempt to blow or rewire a bridge. Zone of control bonds. It has a zone of control, but it cannot be used to form a zone of control bond. Movement. It may only use tactical movement and may not exit an entry area. Okay. Low quality units. A disrupted low quality unit that starts its move in an enemy zone of control must leave it if possible, unless stacked with units in good order. Disrupted low quality units may not enter an enemy zone of control during the movement phase unless the hex contains units in good order. If movement to a hex that is clear of enemy zone of control is possible, it may remain in the hex. Is impossible. If movement to a hex that is clear of enemy zone of control is impossible, it may remain in the hex that it's in. Okay. Combat. A disrupted unit may not attack or advance after combat. Disrupted units have their defense strength halved. Determined defense. It may not be the lead unit in a determined defense. Artillery. It may not use a moved marker, provide artillery support, or flip to its ready side. Engineer units. They may not assist in a river assault, nor create a ferry. Bridging units. They may not repair bridges. Airborne supply heads. They may not resupply airborne artillery, nor provide returnees. It may not receive replacements or returnees. Okay, so basically, you just want to protect your specialty units. Make sure they don't get attacked. Keep them out of danger. Abilities. Disrupted units retain their zone of control, morale, and armor shift abilities. Other units may enter or pass through a hex with friendly disrupted units without becoming disrupted. Okay. Effects of full retreat. Units in full retreat suffer all of the penalties of disruption with the following exceptions. They may ignore the tactical movement restriction and move their full movement allowance, including extended movement. They have a defense strength of 0. If stacked with other units, they contribute nothing to the defense, armor rating, morale, etc. If an enemy combat unit moves or advances adjacent to a unit in full retreat, and that unit in full retreat is not stacked with a disrupted or good order combat unit, do not count unknown units, then the units in full retreat must immediately retreat 2 hexes. Follow all retreat guidelines of 13.1.3. Units in full retreat may remain adjacent or move adjacent to enemy units as long as there are other friendly combat units. Do not count unknown units in the hex that are not in full retreat. Units separated by an unbridged major river or lake hex side are not considered adjacent. Units in full retreat do not exert a zone of control, and units in full retreat take longer to recover. The recovery phase. Rally. During the recovery phase, all friendly, disrupted, and full retreat units that are not in an enemy zone of control automatically recover 1 level. Disrupted markers are removed and full retreat are flipped to their disrupted side. If a disrupted or full retreat unit is in an enemy zone of control, then recovery is determined by a die roll on the rally table. Players may choose to not recover a unit in full retreat in order to retain its automatic retreat ability. The rally table. If a disrupted or full retreat unit is adjacent to an enemy unit, then the unit must make a recovery die roll. On a 1 to 4, the unit remains at its present state, and on a 5 to 6, the unit recovers 1 level. And there are certain die roll modifiers that are cumulative. You get a +1 if the unit is in a town or a city hex, a +1 if the unit is elite, and a -1 if the unit is low quality. Okay. Other status recovery. Friendly units recover from other statuses at this time. Remove all scattered, engaged, replacement, and spent markers, regardless of the unit's status or position on the map. Okay. Scattered, engaged, replacement, and spent. I forget what the replacement. Oh, I think that means it received replacements. Okay. Advance after combat. Actually, how far do I want to read? 17, 18, 19, 20. Maybe up until reinforcements and entry areas. Yeah, something like that. Page 21. Well, we'll see how far we get. Okay. Advance after combat. The basics. If the defender is eliminated or retreats, then all units in good order that either participated in the attack or are stacked with the attacking units, including overstacked units, may advance after combat. Artillery units and airborne supply heads may never advance after combat. Advancing after combat expends no movement points, you just count the hexes. The stacking limit must be observed at the end of each advance. Units that are stacked with attacking units that participated in a different attack may not advance with the current attacking units. Okay, I think what it's saying here is that I think I understand what they're saying. If you have a hex, if a unit, if you have a unit that attacked some other hex, it can't then advance with the units that attacked the current hex that you're attacking. Right, okay, I get it. Advance rates. There are 3 types of advances: limited, normal, and bonus. Limited advance. This only occurs when the defender is eliminated in an exchange result, or when the last step in a determined defense is successful, but is eliminated while doing so. The attacker may only occupy the defender's vacated hex and stop. Normal advance. Units may advance 1 hex in any direction. Bonus advance. Units may advance 2 hexes in any direction. Road bonus. If a mechanized unit follows the path of a road, any of the 3 types, throughout its advance, and abides by the road bonus stacking rule, it may increase its advance rate by 1 hex. In this way, a mechanized unit could advance 2 hexes in a normal advance and 3 hexes in a bonus advance. Out of supply units may not use the road bonus. Okay. Advance after combat allowance chart. So if you get a limited advance, you can advance 1 hex into the defender's vacated hex. The road bonus does not apply. With the normal advance, you can advance 1 hex. With the road bonus is 2 hexes, and with the bonus advance, you can advance 2 hexes, and with the road bonus, 3 hexes. Okay. Advance in any direction. Units may advance in any direction and are not required to enter the defender's vacated hex, except in a major river assault. Road bonus stacking. Mechanized units using the road bonus may not end their advance stacked with another unit unless one of the units is a free stacking unit. Play note. This restriction does not apply in reverse. Units advancing after combat at the normal rate may end their advance with a unit that used the road bonus. Advance and enemy zone of control. Enemy zones of control. Enemy zones of control. Units must stop upon entering an enemy zone of control, even if the hex contains a friendly unit, with one exception. Units may ignore enemy zones of control in the defender's vacated hex. Okay. Got that. Enemy zone of control bonds. These may never be entered or crossed during an advance after combat, except when entering the defender's vacated hex. Okay. Example. The British tank units achieved a 2-hex advance. It can ignore the enemy zone of control in the defender's vacated hex and advance a 3rd hex if it follows a road. So it can move 1, 2, or it can move 1, 2, 3. Solid black arrows indicate legal advance after combat paths. Green paths are shown to demonstrate units may advance in any direction. Got it. Terrain and advance after combat. No unit may advance into a hex or across a hex side that is prohibited to it in regular movement. Minor rivers. Infantry-type units may only cross an unbridged minor river in the first hex of their advance. Canals. Infantry-type units may only cross an unbridged canal hex side if they were attacking across it, and it is the first hex of their advance. Okay. Major rivers. Infantry-type units may only cross an unbridged major river hex side if they were attacking across it, and it is the first hex of their advance. Unlike canal hex sides, the first hex must be into the defender's vacated hex. Okay, got it. Marsh. Infantry-type units must stop and end their advance if they enter a marsh hex, unless they entered the hex along a road. Okay, got it. Example: the British attack achieved a bonus advance. The mechanized units can advance 2 hexes, or 3 if they use the road bonus. So that's... this is the mechanized unit. 1, 2, 3. Got it. The British tank unit cannot advance into the hexes marked No, since vehicle units cannot cross unbridged minor rivers or marsh hexes unless via a road. Mechanized infantry can cross unbridged minor rivers as long as it is the first hex of its advance. I see, so it can cross this one because it's the first hex, but it cannot cross this one because that's the second. This would be the second hex if it advanced this way. Got it. Vehicle type units have to stop in polder, but the infantry, mechanized infantry is not a vehicle type unit. Got it. Breakthrough combat. In general, breakthrough combat allows units that are advancing after combat to attack again. Only units that achieved a Defender Shattered, including an Auto Defender Shattered, or Defender Mandatory Retreat in combat may conduct breakthrough combat. Breakthrough combat uses the same procedure and CRT as a normal attack, except for the additional features and restrictions listed in 16.3. Breakthrough combat can target any enemy units, including those that just retreated in the regular combat, or those that have been attacked by other friendly units. Okay. The breakthrough group. Only one stack, henceforth called the breakthrough group, in each attack may perform breakthrough combat. The other units that participate may conduct their advance after combat after the breakthrough group has finished advancing and conducting breakthrough combat. If the attacker had more than one stack involved in the combat, he has the option to form the breakthrough group in the defender's vacated hex if he wishes, paying 1 hex from the advance rate to do so. Okay, got it. So it's only in a DS or DMR result. Got it. Example. Units A and B have just achieved a Defender Mandatory Retreat result against enemy unit number 1, and so can conduct breakthrough combat. Units A and B form the breakthrough group by advancing into the defender's vacated hex. With their second hex, they can spend it to conduct breakthrough combat against Unit Number 2. If successful, they may advance into that hex. Got it. So this is, I feel like all of this is just a way to prevent defenders from using super weak units to slow down the attackers. Because if you defend with a super weak unit, you're going to get crushed with a DS result or DMR result, and then the attacking units can then attack anything else you have nearby. Although if you're forming Zoc bonds, you know, this enemy unit might be another hex away. I'm not sure how that's supposed to work. Anyway, let's see, where are we? Cost and procedure. Cost. It costs the breakthrough group 1 hex out of its advance allowance to conduct breakthrough combat. If the breakthrough combat is successful in forcing the defender to retreat, the breakthrough group may either advance into the defender's vacated hex at no additional cost, or stop in the hex it attacked from. Play note. Non-mechanized units can move 1 hex and conduct breakthrough combat, while mechanized units with road bonus can move 2 hexes and conduct breakthrough combat. The breakthrough combat can come at the beginning, middle, or end of the advance. Okay. What does that mean? I think what that means is, like, if you have a stack, I think what this means is that if you have a stack, let's say you have a stack with like tanks on a road, you attack up the road and you get a DS result. So you get like a bonus move. You can move 2, and then I think it's 3 if you move along the road. And then you have let's say you have another enemy unit adjacent to the road, not on the road. I think what this is saying is you can conduct a breakthrough combat against the adjacent unit, and then after that combat is done, you can continue to advance up the road. So you pay 1 for the breakthrough combat, so then you could continue to advance 2 hexes up the road with those tanks. I think that's what it's saying. Maximum of 1 breakthrough combat. If the combat achieves a DS or DMR result, the breakthrough group may complete its advance, but may not conduct any further breakthrough combats. No additional advances. The attacker never earns additional hexes by a successful breakthrough combat. Always use the advance allowance of the initial combat. Got it. Breakthrough combat and the road bonus. If using the road bonus, the breakthrough group can consist of only 1 unit plus 1 free stacking unit. Okay. Example. The 2 British tanks units have achieved a DS result, eliminating the unit and allowing breakthrough combat. Using the road bonus, 1 unit could advance 2 hexes down the road and conduct breakthrough combat against the unit 3 hexes away. Right, because you get 3, using the road bonus, you could move 3 hexes, but you can pay 1 of those hexes to attack instead. Okay, restrictions. You cannot conduct breakthrough combat against a hex that you could not advance into. The breakthrough group may not split up and attack from separate hexes. Multi-hex breakthrough combat is not allowed. Road congestion. The breakthrough group may not conduct a breakthrough combat or assist other attacks from a hex containing friendly units that did not take part in the original combat. Okay. Breakthrough combats are prohibited across unbridged major rivers or canals. Okay. Air and artillery support are not allowed in breakthrough combat. All other combat modifiers apply, including terrain, morale shift, and armor shift. Breakthrough combat against retreated units. Unlike retreats from combat, defending units that have retreated previously in the combat phase are not eliminated if forced to retreat again from breakthrough combat. Remember, units in full retreat automatically retreat if an enemy unit moves adjacent. Okay. Breakthrough group assisting other attacks. If the breakthrough group advances adjacent to a defending hex, which is about to be attacked by other friendly units, the breakthrough group may use its breakthrough combat option, paying 1 hex of its advance, to add half its attack strength to the combat. It cannot be part of the lead formation, even if it belongs to the same division, and take part in that attack. If this happens, this attack must be resolved next. A breakthrough group that assists another combat does not benefit in any way from the new attack's advance after combat result. The group that assists may only advance into the defender's vacated hex and stop, or remain in its present hex. Oh, it's interesting. So it doesn't allow it, you're not allowed to use the original advance after combat from the original attack. Okay, that's a bit of a gotcha. What is this, 16.5? What is it, another stack? Okay. Artillery units. Artillery in general. Artillery units provide favorable column shifts on the CRT and a +1 DRM on the determined defense table. When either the shift or the determined defense DRM is used, the artillery unit is flipped to its use side. Properties. Artillery units have the following properties. They are free stacking units. They have only one step. They may not be a lead unit. They may not advance after combat. They may not be used in breakthrough combat. Moving artillery units. I wonder if these have a range to them. Oh, okay, we're going to talk about it. Artillery units are vehicle-type units. They can use tactical movement to move 1 hex and provide artillery support in the same turn, or 2 hexes but become disrupted. So you maybe want to advance your artillery 1 hex every turn, something like that. Moved markers. Artillery units in good order may be moved up to 5 movement points if allocated a moved marker. Only while under the marker is the artillery unit allowed to use the road movement cost and extended movement. The marker must remain on the unit until the next friendly movement phase, when the owning player can remove it, reposition it, or keep it on the unit. The German player has only 2 moved markers. The Allied player has 3 markers. This is a strict limit, Artillery units may flip to their ready side while under a moved marker. While under a moved marker, artillery units have a defense strength of 1, may not provide artillery support, immediately lose their moved marker if forced to retreat. So I think the moved marker is like a representation of, what would you call that? These are different battalions. Each formation is a division, is that right? So it's a core level asset. These are trucks. I think that's what it's representing. The moved marker is representing trucks that are a core level asset, something like that. That's my guess anyway. Range. Each artillery unit has a range. This is the maximum distance, measured in hexes, that the artillery unit may be from the target hex and still provide artillery support. Intervening terrain and combat units have no effect. Both the attacker and the defender trace range to the hex under attack. To the hex under attack, got it. Count the target hex, but not the hex of the artillery unit. Got it. Example. Artillery unit A is 5 hexes from the enemy unit, so it can support unit B's attack. Now where is the range? Is that? Oh geez, I think that's it. Let me put it here. There we go. Range is to the left. So if I'm understanding this correctly, this enemy unit could be 1 hex further, and this artillery unit could still hit it. Ready and fired sides. Artillery units have only 1 step. The reverse side is used to indicate the artillery unit has fired. Once an artillery unit fires, it is flipped to its back. Artillery units on their fired side may no longer provide a shift in combat or the +1 DRM on the determined defense table. Artillery units may flip back to their ready side only during the artillery resupply phase. Got it? So the fired is just representing that it's out of ammunition and it needs to be resupplied. Okay, artillery support. In general, each artillery unit may provide artillery support to only 1 combat per combat phase. Only artillery units that are in range on their ready side may be used. The following restrictions apply to artillery support. Artillery units that are scattered, engaged, disrupted, in full retreat, or under a moved marker may not provide artillery support. So I think if it's under a moved marker, that represents that like the artillery is, what's the word for it? It's basically, you know, packed up, ready to be towed by the trucks. So it's not deployed. Artillery units may not provide artillery support to their own hex. Artillery may only support an attack if the combat involves a unit from its formation. The formation does not need to be the lead formation. Exception. Allied corps level artillery can support any combat, including those with just American units. Okay. Artillery can provide defensive artillery support to any friendly formation. The German Arco 191 artillery unit may provide artillery support to both the von Tettau and 2nd SS formations, and is color-coded to indicate this. Offensive artillery support. Each artillery unit providing offensive support gives the attacker a favorable shift of one column to the right on the CRT. So you can have more than one artillery unit provide support. The Allied player only may earn 2 shifts in a single combat by using both the 5 Agra artillery unit and another friendly artillery unit. Got it. Defensive artillery support. One artillery unit may be flipped to provide a +1 DRM to a determined defense roll. No more than one artillery unit may be used per combat. If the defender is rolling multiple times due to an inability to retreat, each roll receives the +1 DRM for no additional cost. Okay. Artillery in ground combat. Artillery units have no attack strength. They can only provide artillery support in an attack. If attacked, they use their defense strength. They cannot provide defensive artillery support to their own hex. An artillery unit may use its defense strength in the same combat phase it provided defensive artillery support to a different hex. Conversely, an artillery unit can provide defensive artillery support after being attacked, as long as it is not engaged, disrupted, in full retreat, or under a moved marker. Got it. Artillery resupply. Allied non-airborne artillery resupply. During each friendly artillery resupply phase, the Allied player may flip over to their ready side any 2 non-airborne artillery units that can trace a supply path to entry area N. Got it. Play note. Airborne artillery lands on its ready side. Once used, airborne artillery may only flip back to its ready side if resupplied via an airdrop. See below. It cannot use entry area N to flip. Allied airborne artillery resupply. If the weather is clear, the Allied player may flip over all of his 3 airborne artillery units. If the weather is cloudy, he may flip over any one of the 3. No airborne artillery may flip during overcast and night turns. The artillery unit flipped must have a 4-hex overland supply path to its division's airborne supply head, and that supply head must be in good order and have a 4-hex overland supply path to one of the division's drop hexes that is not in an enemy zone of control. Friendly units in the hex negate enemy zones of control for this purpose. In a clear or polder terrain, villages have no effect. Okay. After turn 5, the hex occupied by an airborne supply head, plus the 6 hexes adjacent, can be considered a drop hex for artillery resupply purposes if the 2 conditions above are met. Got it. Play note. Airborne artillery can still flip even after its airborne supply head is depleted. Okay, got it. German artillery resupply. During the German artillery resupply phase of the AM and PM turns, the German player may flip over any 2 artillery units that can trace a supply path to a friendly entry area. During night turns, all German artillery units that can trace a supply path to a friendly entry area may flip to their ready side. Restrictions. Artillery resupply may not be accumulated. Those flips not used are lost. Artillery units that are disrupted or in full retreat may not be flipped to their ready side. Engaged and moved markers have no effect on resupply. Okay. Supply, the supply phase. During the supply phase, the phasing player checks supply for all his units. Players check supply by tracing a supply path from the unit to a supply source. If a supply path cannot be traced, the unit receives an out-of-supply marker. If the unit was already out of supply, there is no additional effect. If any unit bearing an out-of-supply marker from a previous turn can now trace a supply path, the marker is removed. Playnote. 2 sets of differently colored out-of-supply markers are provided in case both German and Allied units are in that state and next to each other. The 2 out-of-supply markers for the 1st and 82nd can be used to indicate all units in the division are out of supply, rather than put an out-of-supply marker on every unit in the division. Okay. Supply sources. Supply is available at all friendly entry areas and airborne supply heads. Airborne supply heads are temporary supply sources for the units belonging to that airborne division. Friendly units that are not part of that division may not use that supply head as a supply source. At the conclusion of the Allied supply phase of Turn 5, after they have provided supply to the units of their division, the supply heads are flipped to their depleted side. From then on, they only assist in resupplying their division's artillery units, allow returnees to rejoin their division, and serve as a drop hex for their division. Once depleted, they never flip back to their non-depleted side, and airborne units must then trace to a friendly entry area to be in supply. Properties. Airborne supply heads are considered vehicle-type combat units, but their defense strength is only used if they are the only unit in the hex. If stacked with other friendly units, they may not be used to satisfy a step loss. They have only one step. Their reverse side denotes depleted status. They stack for free. They have a zone of control, but cannot form a zone of control bond. They may only move using tactical movement. They may not be the lead unit in a determined defense. And they cannot advance after combat. Eliminated supply heads. If an airborne supply head is eliminated, it returns to play in the next Allied supply phase under the following conditions. It must be placed in a hex containing at least one unit from its division. If placed in polder, there must be a road in the hex. If there is no such hex, then it may not return. It arrives back in play on its depleted side. It arrives back in play disrupted, but can rally in the recovery phase of the next turn, following the normal recovery rules. Supply path. A supply path is a path of contiguous hexes from a unit to a supply source. A supply path can consist of two portions, an overland portion and a road portion. The overland portion, if any, must always come before the road portion. The overland portion of the supply path may be up to 4 hexes long and must terminate in a road hex or a supply source. It may traverse all types of terrain, but the path may not cross an unbridged major river hex side except at a usable ferry, including one provided by an engineer unit, enter an enemy-occupied hex, cross or enter an enemy zone of control bond, enter 2 consecutive hexes in an enemy zone of control. Friendly units negate enemy zones of control in the hex they occupy. Design note. The last restriction allows a supply path to reach units partially surrounded by enemy units. The road portion of the supply path may be of any length, but must follow a path of contiguous road hexes, any type. At no time may the road portion of the supply path enter an enemy-occupied hex, enter an enemy zone of control. Friendly units negate enemy zones of control in the hex they occupy. Enter a vacant city hex that was last occupied by enemy units. These hexes are considered occupied by rear area or security troops not represented by counters. Cross a blown bridge or a ferry, usable or unusable hex side. A ferry can be used in the overland portion of a supply path. Got it. The road portion may not cross a bridge marked intact when tracing a German supply path. Okay, that means that it's Allied controlled. And the road portion may not cross a bridge wired for demolition when tracing an Allied supply path, because that means that it's German controlled. Got it. Okay. The example above shows 2 legal overland supply paths for Unit A. Note how the path can cross an unbridged major river hex side using a friendly engineer unit, and how Unit B negates the enemy zone of control in the hex it occupies. I see. So 1 hex, it cannot enter a second hex, but this one, the friendly unit negates that hex, and it can cross a minor river. Or no, this is a canal. It can cross the canal during the overland portion. Right, it can cross a canal, but not an unbridged major river. Okay, it's good to remember. This one, it can enter 1 enemy zone of control hex, but not a second one. Still overland. It can cross this major river because the engineer is, I guess if the engineer is just next to the river, that counts as it providing the bridging ability. I'm not sure how that works. Okay, out of supply penalties. Maybe I'll write that down as a question. So this is going to be 18.3, 18.3.2. Is that ferrying or bridging? Okay, out of supply penalties. Where am I at time-wise? Okay, perfect. A unit bearing an out of supply marker suffers the following penalties. Movement. It must use tactical movement. Combat. Its attack strength is halved. Fractions are rounded up, so 1 halved is still 1. Advance after combat. No road bonus allowed. Artillery. Non-airborne artillery units may not flip to their ready side. They may still provide artillery support as long as they are on their ready side. Okay. So I think the ready side means that the artillery has ammunition. And if it's out of supply, that means they don't have fuel or other, like, food. Abilities. Out of supply units retain their full defense strength, as well as their zone of control and zone of control bond, morale rating, and armor rating effects. That's interesting. This is very different from what you would think, what you would see in like a Civil War thing, where being out of supply would gradually make units not able to fight because they run out of ammunition. Anyway, airborne supply. Allied airborne units are automatically in supply throughout the first turn they land, and do not check supply in the first supply phase of the turn they land. Starting in the Allied supply phase of the following turn, they must be able to trace supply to an airborne supply head or a friendly entry area to remain in supply. Playnote: this guarantees that Allied airborne units will always be in supply for the first 2 turns after they land. Okay. Dismounted infantry. If during the Allied supply phase an Allied mechanized or motorized infantry unit is in supply, but its overland supply path crosses an unbridged canal, then it is considered to be dismounted from its vehicles, and a dismounted marker is placed on the unit. Interesting. Interesting. I was wondering about this before, because I was thinking, you're allowed to cross terrain. I was thinking multiple different types of terrain, like polder as well. You were allowed to cross this with mechanized and motorized units, and I thought, well, how does that work in terms of the actual vehicles? And this handles that. That's very clever. Very clever. Okay. If the overland supply path crosses a usable ferry over a major river, the marker is not placed. Okay. This unit is considered in supply, but must move and advance after combat as a non-mechanized unit, with a movement allowance of 3. The marker is removed immediately if at the start of its movement its overland supply path no longer crosses an unbridged canal. That's so clever, because that models, the vehicles catching up to the infantry. That's pretty clever. Okay. Note that out of supply units do not need this marker. Got it. Out of supply units do not need this marker. I guess because they already have the movement restrictions. They can only use tactical movement. Yeah. Okay, example. The two British motorized infantry units use tactical movement to cross the canal hex side. Got it. In their next movement phase, they must move as non-mechanized units, with a movement allowance of 3, since their overland supply path crosses an unbridged canal hex side. Got it. Well, that's very clever. Very clever. Okay. So next is reinforcements and entry errors. I think I want to leave that for next time. What am I at now? Just under an hour. Yeah, so next time I'll do 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. It's about 5 pages. Maybe finish. Maybe what do I want to do? Hints for players. Yeah, I think maybe I'll just try to keep to 5 pages or an hour per session.